Welcome to the Are the Gays OK podcast, a show about mental health in the LGBTQIA+ community.
We're your hosts, James Wilkinson and Stephen Griffiths. Stephen is a therapist who specialises in working with LGBTQIA+ clients. We are two gay men wanting to honestly share our experiences in the hopes of destigmatising the world of mental health. We won't shy away from difficult topics. We hope that by being vulnerable and sharing honestly, we can contribute positively to the conversation surrounding mental health in our community.
We will be discussing topics such as coming out, internalised homophobia, substance misuse, queer literature, and more. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and share with anyone who may find this useful. New episodes will be released on every second Monday.
If you have any questions, feedback, or topics you'd like us to cover, then you can get in touch with us via our Instagram at arethegaysok or hello@arethegaysok.co.uk.
Welcome to the Are the Gays OK podcast, a show about mental health in the LGBTQIA+ community.
We're your hosts, James Wilkinson and Stephen Griffiths. Stephen is a therapist who specialises in working with LGBTQIA+ clients. We are two gay men wanting to honestly share our experiences in the hopes of destigmatising the world of mental health. We won't shy away from difficult topics. We hope that by being vulnerable and sharing honestly, we can contribute positively to the conversation surrounding mental health in our community.
We will be discussing topics such as coming out, internalised homophobia, substance misuse, queer literature, and more. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe and share with anyone who may find this useful. New episodes will be released on every second Monday.
If you have any questions, feedback, or topics you'd like us to cover, then you can get in touch with us via our Instagram at arethegaysok or hello@arethegaysok.co.uk. In today's episode, we're going to be introducing ourselves. So, this is very strange, introducing ourselves when we already know each other. But Stephen, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm gay. That's the main thing.
Interesting.
I'm 32. I'm a therapist. Live in Manchester. Well, that makes me sound quite basic, but those are the basic details.
Excellent, good. Okay, that's the first line of your CV. So I'm James Wilkinson. I am 35, live in Manchester with my dog Eddie and my cat Tom.
So you sound like you're on blind date.
Well, I'm not on blind date because I also live with my partner, and I've got a bit of a
journalist, ladies and gentlemen.
And I have got a background in doing some little bits of presenting work on the side, but my professional life is in digital marketing. So, anything else you'd like to say about yourself, Stephen? What got you into doing therapy?
Well, it takes one to know one, I suppose. Like, I had a lengthy struggle with my mental health for many, many years. I'm sober, and a big part of my recovery from that has involved therapy, has involved counselling. And yeah, I just decided that it was something I wanted to be a part of. I'm really passionate about mental health. I'm really passionate about recovery in the world of mental health. And yeah, that's why, it's pursuing something that I think is really important and really meaningful. Why did you want a career in digital marketing, James?
Because I did well in it at college and at university. So that's the kind of career path that I chose, was digital marketing. And I suppose it's constantly changing, which I enjoy because it keeps you regularly up to date in keeping learning. But yeah, I totally relate to that because I'm also sober. And
you are?
Yes, I am. Almost 3.5 years now. And part of my journey as well has had therapy either side of me not being sober, but also being in sobriety. And yeah, that kind of understanding that our mental health is never a fixed state. There's always stuff that needs to be worked on. And also depending on what's happening in your life and where you're at. So yeah, I'm really excited that we've got this opportunity to talk about some of the things that have been really pivotal for us in terms of us working through our mental health and putting it out there into the world and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. So we're called Are the Gays OK? we went on a bit of a journey
Yeah.
with finding the name. We had several options on the card, several iterations of this podcast, but I think for me, Are the Gays OK makes a lot of sense in terms of what we're trying to do, which is really talk about mental health within the LGBT community, and not from a place of sort of we know all the answers, but just adding our experiences into the mix, really, and trying to have some open and honest conversations about how being gay has impacted our mental health in places, what part that's played.
100%. And, you know, like we've discussed, haven't we, that like I've even felt this kind of, well, why should I be talking about this? Like, I'm not an expert. But there's a whole piece here around, you know, gay history. After a certain point, there is very little documentation of it because it didn't exist. It was illegal to promote it. It was illegal to talk about it. So, you know, if we don't document part of our community, then it won't be there in the future for other generations. So all we can do, like you were saying, is show up in this podcast, talk about our experiences honestly. Hopefully it will resonate with some people, maybe it won't, but we also want you to get involved, listeners, as well. Like, we want you to share with us, like, where you think there's things that you can relate to, or where there's things that you don't relate to, or things that are different, or if there's topics you want us to discuss. You know, this isn't just our podcast, it's for everybody.
We're sharing it.
Exactly.
We're sharing it. And I think one thing I've noticed is, and it's obviously it's well documented, but there does seem to be quite a high proportion of mental health issues within the community. I know some of the statistics will be well documented elsewhere in the podcast, but you know, we do suffer more than sort of our heterosexual counterparts, and I think talking about why that is, some of the sort of darker sides, if you will, of being gay in terms of the impact it does have on mental health, and just showing another side to the story, you know, the vulnerabilities underneath it, like it's not all tongue pops, clicking fingers and fans.
Yeah, but also, like, you know, we want to also try and look at some of the lighthearted stuff as well, because, you know, through pain comes growth, but it doesn't all have to be sad and depressing.
I'd quite like for it to be sad and depressing for the most part.
I don't think many of our listeners would want to sit and listen to 9 episodes of depressing content.
The depressed ones might.
Maybe. So, yeah, what do you want to achieve from this podcast? What is it that kind of got you excited about being on this project?
So there's two sides to it. Part of it was sort of self-validation, you know. I think it's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something I'm really interested in. Obviously, we get on quite well. And I thought it'd be nice for us to spend some time together doing something we're both really interested and passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of sort of altruistically, I think conversations about mental health are really important.
Yes.
I think lived experience is really important and really valid. And I think stories like ours warrant being shared. And I think if we can contribute in some way positively to destigmatizing some of these conversations, like cutting through some of the shame people might be feeling about their mental health, by telling them how we've experienced that, that's really all I want from it. It's not to like inspire change or any of those things, but just if there's someone listening who is struggling with their mental health, hopefully us sharing our stories might help them feel a little bit less alone in that.
I love that. Yeah, and I think there's very similar reasons why I'm involved. Because, again, like you said, having that lived experience and knowing, like, those moments when I was hopeless, those moments in the past where I felt like I was fundamentally wrong and that no one else around me was, if there was a resource like hopefully what we're going to create in this podcast I could have listened to and understood it's just not, I'm not the only one, other people have felt the same, other people don't always feel that way, it's not always the same, that would be, for me, just a win if even one person listens to it and goes, yeah, no, I get it, these guys get me. There's also an element for me, having had experience doing some presenting stuff in the past, like I've wanted to get involved in a podcast for a long time, but my own kind of fear that I wouldn't be good enough, or it wouldn't be high quality enough, or no one would listen has held me back. So I'm just going for it now, trying to work through that.
Yeah, I think like I did a podcast as a guest not that long ago, and that really helped me with this in terms of just sometimes I think you just have to act and let yourself catch up. And we're as qualified, we're both gay. We both struggled with our mental health.
Yeah.
Why are we any less qualified to be discussing these things than anybody else? And as I said, we're not coming from any kind of ivory tower looking down. We're in the gutter with you, like we've been there, and we want to talk. And why not? Why not?
Exactly. And I think there's some exciting topics we've got coming up, haven't we, in the series? Well, I don't know if we'd call them exciting, but I suppose
I'm excited.
Some of them are hard hitting, and some of them are ones that are going to be tough to discuss because we're coming at it from our experience. We're going to potentially have some guests on later in the series, but for the majority of the series, it's going to be just us sharing our experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and I hope, like you said, there'll be some sort of light with the shade.
You being the shade, let's clarify. Me being the light.
I agree with me being the shade.
Insert save noise here.
I don't know if I'd classify you as the light. But I think what we want to do is talk about these sort of quite serious topics, but not take ourselves too seriously either. There is always humour to be found in even quite dark topics, and I think that's how we sort of want to balance it. So this podcast isn't designed to sort of make people miserable or make people cry, but it is hopefully going to be balanced in that, some bad things have happened to us, some things have been challenging, but here we are recording a podcast, having a little bit of a laugh and a giggle about it, hopefully.
Therefore, we've made it.
Some of us have made it.
But we're also going to be signposting, aren't we, throughout the series where there's things that have been useful for us, whether that's like books that we've read, whether that's other podcasts we've listened to.
No other podcasts,
sorry. Or whether it's even like services we might have engaged with, which we have found have helped us. So, yeah, there's going to be a bit of hope in every episode.
I hope so. And what are you most excited about talking about on the podcast?
Oh, most excited about talking about. I think for me...
Is there an echo in here?
It will be that non-soundproof wall. For me, I'm excited about talking about my coming out story, which I know is the next episode. And it has nothing to do with the fact we just recorded that before this episode. But yeah, I think that's something that I've spoken about it maybe to therapists in the past and to partners, but never like as a wider thing. So, but yeah, I think also talking about my sobriety, I'm really excited to talk about as well, because it's something that I think is one of my biggest achievements, in the last 5 years for sure, but something that I have kind of not wanted to really talk about. So that's a bit of a coming out again for me, I suppose. How about you? What are you looking forward to, Stephen?
Definitely talking about addiction for me. It's I like that you said sobriety and I've said addiction, sticking with the sort of light and shade element of things. I really do want to talk about addiction. It's something I'm very excited to talk about, both in terms of my own experiences with addiction and also from working with clients within the LGBT community, talking often around substance misuse. It's definitely something I'm very, very passionate about and keen to talk about. Can I ask you a question?
Ask me a question, Stephen. That's what we're here for.
So you said you felt a little bit nervous about talking about your sobriety.
Yeah.
What do you feel nervous about?
Well, my friends know, close friends, family know that I've been sober now for like almost 3.5 years. But like not many people in work know, and I think there's a part of like me accepting and owning that sobriety like more publicly, which is a kind of a door I want to walk through, and have been at the door looking at it, saying, should I put a post on Facebook? Should I put a post on Instagram? Seeing other people around me that are getting sober doing it and just being really open about it, and I've not. So, yeah.
Well, it's out there now.
It's out there now.
It's in the public. No, I relate to that. Like, I've only recently gone I say gone public as if I'm like a celebrity and everyone was like clamouring down for attention, but it's in the public domain now. Like you can find out about my.
It's on Wikipedia. On the page you created.
On my wiki page. No, but it is findable now. I've spoken about it publicly. It's out there, and it is a bit of a scary thing, worrying about being judged. But I feel very pleased that I did it, and it's like a experiment in congruence, And I didn't have any negative reactions actually. Like my boss at work liked it. On Instagram, which is the only conversation we had. But it's nice just knowing people know now. And for me, similarly with everything we're going to be talking about, I am not ashamed of being sober. So I'm not going to behave as if I am.
And this is the whole reason, isn't it, why you wanted to do this? Was because if that is where, it's like your thought process is to be, oh, I'm not going to say anything about it. I'll just keep myself quiet. It's like, but I know that I only was able to get the help I needed by hearing other people's stories and reading books by people who said, oh, I tried this and I did that. If they hadn't have publicly done that, I wouldn't have had those resources to know where to go to try and sort the things out I was struggling with.
Yeah, we need. There's a TED Talk called Recover Out Loud that I absolutely love about that, and I think.
Who's that by?
It's do you know I don't know her name, but she won like Miss America or something, and then she got disqualified for cocaine use.
We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, we'll put a link. But she talked about it that at the time there was so much media about her being disqualified for cocaine use, but she's 10 years sober now. Where's the media for that? It's all you ever hear is the negative stuff, and I think obviously most of my friends are in some form of recovery or absence, or a lot of them are. So when I think of like addict, I think of all these beautiful people in my life and all these positive examples, but I think when sort of Joe Public, I don't know why I'm saying Joe Public, when Joe Public hears that word, I wonder what they imagine. And I think it is important to show recovery is possible and people do get better, and we need those examples in the world.
We do. And we do need those examples, especially from an LGBTQIA plus perspective as well, because we are underrepresented. And it's interesting as well. I think that there's other charities now that are doing a lot of work around this. Like I know Drinkaware are doing a lot of research around LGBT drinking habits and trying to understand that, because we do have a higher tendency to have addiction in our community.
And other mental health conditions as well, it's a lot more likely that they'll be experienced. And I think, again, sort of spoilers for the addiction episode, but I think some of the things that are really interesting is for gay men specifically, like the addiction profile is really, really different than the general populace, actually. And that's a really interesting thing to examine in terms of like the substances we use, the way we use them. There is a difference there that perhaps doesn't get spoken about enough. So hopefully that's a gap that we can fill.
Yes, I agree. And yeah, I think also what's really exciting for me is that we're hopefully going to have a guest coming up on the podcast where we're going to be talking to as well about the importance of LGBT literature or queer literature, because there's so much out there now, and there's so much that you can just read privately on your own, because a lot of the time when people do have struggles with their mental health, they don't maybe have the confidence to go and speak to somebody else about it or want to go and speak to someone. So there is a lot of stuff you can do and consume content on your own.
And I love consuming content on my own. It's my favourite way to consume it. No, but I think it is a really positive thing. We live in an age where queer literature is available. Like so many more resources are there that we didn't have when we were younger. Yeah. And hopefully we can be a part of that now. Maybe there's some. My dream really is like there's some 15-year-old gay kid sat in his bedroom listening to our podcast, feeling a little bit better about himself because we're sharing our experience. Because that will be happening somewhere right now. As much as all this progress has been made, somewhere in the world right now, there's some 15-year-old kid who's full of shame, doesn't want to be gay, would rather be dead than gay. And if they could find conversations like ours showing that it does get better and that there is growth, and we found it hard too, but it does become okay, then if that's all this does, like that's an amazing thing for it to have done.
So just before we finish off our episode, what's one interesting fact about you?
Well, you didn't tell me you were going to say that, did you?
Well, I'm not going to give you time to prepare for
What's
it.
one interesting fact about me?
What would our listeners love to know about you?
Well, you'd have to ask them, wouldn't you? Let me think. What's interesting about me? Nothing.
Okay.
You can't just blindside people with questions like that, because the stuff I'm thinking is not stuff I want to put into the public domain.
Okay, well, I'll let you have a think whilst I answer that question. Why don't you ask me?
James, please tell me, what is something interesting about you? I've been trying to find it for years.
So I did go up on stage and do a lip sync against Georges from RuPaul's Drag Race on the Work the World tour, and I won. I'm quite proud of that moment.
Okay. I once got physically removed from the wizarding world of Harry Potter in Japan for being drunk and disorderly.
There we go.
If that's not interesting, I don't know what it is.
Light and shade. So, I think that's enough about us. Stephen, thank you. Lovely to meet you. So, if you do have any other questions for us, then you can get in contact with us on our socials. It is at arethegaysok on Instagram, or you can email us hello@arethegaysok.co.uk.
You can do those things, and we'll be happy to answer any queries you may have from our adoring fans. But yeah, I think that's it for the first episode. Next time, we're going to be talking about coming out. We're going to be telling our stories, sharing our experiences of us coming out. So come and listen to us. We should be releasing in about 2 weeks. We're going to be releasing this podcast every 2 weeks. So there it will be.
Yeah, on all the platforms. I mean, if you're listening to it now, you already know where it is. So
You found it, well done.
I think there's only one last thing to say.
And what's that?
1, 2, 3. Thanks for listening.
I didn't know what it was.
I did say.